My sister gave birth, so I went to the hospital. But when I was walking down the corridor, suddenly, I heard my husband's voice. She doesn't understand anything. At least she brings money. And then Mom spoke. You two deserve happiness. She's just a useless loser. My sister laughed. Thank you. I'll take care of it so that we can be happy. I didn't say anything. I just turned around and left. But then, what happened next shocked them all. Melissa Johnson sat at her work table, staring at the website of a fertility clinic. Her diary was lying nearby, but even the view of the city from a high-rise in Chicago couldn't lift her spirits. That's it, she whispered, pressing her hand to her forehead and taking a deep breath. Melissa was always expected to be perfect. Her gaze involuntarily fell on the wedding photograph, where she and her husband, Brian, smiled at each other. 5 years of marriage and their struggle with infertility had created an invisible wall between them. Brian worked in real estate, always impeccably dressed, with a charming smile. But lately, even his smile couldn't hide his fatigue. Treatment costs had risen again. At dinner that night, Melissa said, now, most of the expenses are not covered by insurance. Brian put down his chopsticks and picked up a glass of red wine. All in all, it's okay. We'll handle it. The work is going well. Melissa looked into his eyes. She thought he was hiding something. The balance of their joint account was decreasing. Just expenses, Brian answered quickly. I need to invest in advance to close big deals. Don't worry. Melissa was about to ask one more question, but the phone rang. On the screen, her sister Vanessa's name came up. Hey, can you talk now? Her voice was shaking with excitement. What happened? Melissa pushed the plate away and went to the kitchen. You won't believe it. I'm pregnant. Melissa froze. She leaned against the kitchen table, trying to breathe evenly. Congratulations, she barely managed to say. Who's the father? I still can't say, for personal reasons, Vanessa spoke more quietly. She was the complete opposite of Melissa. She didn't have a regular job, was dependent on their parents, and lived a carefree life, while Melissa always tried to meet the family's expectations, feeling responsible. Vanessa had gone her own way. Did you tell Mom and Dad? Melissa asked, trying to control her hands. Yes, I just called. They were strangely happy, especially Mom. Melissa's head was in chaos. She had spent a lot of money on infertility treatments, and her sister had just announced she was pregnant. The strangest part was that their parents, Walter and Elaine, were delighted, without even asking who the father was. Mom and Dad are having a little party on Saturday. You and Brian should come, Vanessa said cheerfully. Yes, of course, Melissa answered, though without much enthusiasm. When she hung up, a wave of despair washed over her. She sank to the cold kitchen floor. Years of trying, tracking ovulation, hormonal injections, planned attempts to get pregnant, all in vain. And Vanessa hadn't even named the father of the child, yet everyone congratulated her. Saturday was torture for Melissa. Elaine, with tears in her eyes, placed her hands on Vanessa's stomach. Our first grandchild. Even Walter, usually the strict one, smiled unexpectedly softly. Melissa thought fervently, would they also be this happy if I ever got pregnant? Brian sat next to her but looked tense. He constantly checked his phone and left the room several times. Work, he explained, but Melissa had a bad feeling. Later that night, when she returned home, she logged into their online banking. The balance had decreased again. Brian's business expenses were too frequent and too high. He returned home later and later, and his excuses about dinners with clients multiplied. She closed the laptop and looked at the city outside the window. Why is Brian acting so strange? Why are my parents so happy about Vanessa's pregnancy? And why is it that the more I try to pursue my own happiness, the further it gets from me? One night, the phone rang. Melissa, Vanessa went into labor. We're taking her to the hospital. Her mother's voice trembled with joy. Which hospital? Chicago Memorial. We're already on our way. Melissa looked at the clock. 2:37 a.m. Brian's pillow was empty. Where's Brian? She asked sharply. Her mother hesitated. Probably working late. Can you come in the morning? Yes, of course. Melissa hung up. She got out of bed and walked into the living room. Silence. No messages from Brian. His coat was still hanging on the hook. Again, some urgent work, she muttered while pouring herself tea. In recent months, he had been coming home late. When she asked, he always talked about an important deal. At 6 a.m., Melissa woke up on the couch. Brian still hadn't come home. She pursed her lips, got ready, and went to the hospital. But what she wasn't ready for was the truth that awaited her there. In the parking lot, she saw Brian's black sedan. He was here. He hadn't been in touch all night. After going to reception, she found out her sister's room number and headed there. The smell of hospital sterility and pale green walls reminded her of her endless visits to the reproductive medicine clinic. And then, she heard Brian's voice. She doesn't understand anything. At least she's a good milk cow. Melissa was dumbfounded. Her blood froze. She held her breath and pressed against the wall. You two should be happy together, her mother added. She's just a useless failure, Vanessa sneered. Melissa's heart pounded. Thank you. I'll make sure we're happy, Vanessa laughed. Melissa closed her eyes. This is a nightmare. It can't be true. But the next words shattered her heart. The baby really looks like Brian, her mother said confidently. That nose, that chin. We don't even need a test. Yes, the baby is definitely mine, Brian's voice confirmed. A piercing pain shot through Melissa's chest. Everything fell into place in her mind. Brian's late nights. The strange withdrawals from their account. Vanessa's pregnancy from an unknown father. Her parents' overwhelming joy. It all pointed to one terrible truth. The voices continued from the room. How are you going to explain this to Melissa? Her mother asked. She doesn't need to know anything, Vanessa answered coldly. If she knew that her money for infertility treatments actually funded my pregnancy, she'd go crazy. Brian laughed. She didn't even notice when I withdrew a little from the account to prepare for your birth. She's so focused on work that she doesn't see anything. What if she finds out? Vanessa asked. She won't know, Elaine said firmly. She's always been obsessed with work. Family comes second for her. So we decided to create a real family. Brian, you and the baby are our new family. Melissa clutched her phone in her trembling fingers. She turned on the recording. She needed proof. Her heart was pounding. In the end, she can't have children, the mother continued. How many years? Treatment and all in vain. I wanted a grandson who will continue our surname. And Brian, great genes. A child from you and Brian, a gift that Melissa would never be able to give me. Melissa closed her eyes. When I started dating Brian, I didn't think it would go this far, said Vanessa. But now, I'm glad. I have something that Melissa will never have. She has a different life, Brian added coldly. She cares about career awards. But I wanted a family. A family that she couldn't give me. The world before Melissa's eyes began to blur. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Everything she knew about her life collapsed in one moment. What will you name the girl? Asked the mother. In honor of you, Mother, Vanessa answered proudly. And that's wonderful. Elaine's voice trembled with joy. You are my real daughter. Not like Melissa. You know how important family is. Melissa stood up quietly. She stopped the recording and put the phone in her pocket. Her legs were weak, but she made a decision. Silently, she turned around and left. In her head, a hurricane raged, betrayal, pain, anger, but also liberation. All the anxieties of past years finally found the answer. Not the one she wanted, but the truth. On the street, she was blinded by the sunlight. She got into the car and lowered her forehead to the steering wheel. But there were no tears. Instead, something new arose in her heart. A plan. At that moment, the phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen. Melissa, where are you? We're all waiting for you. Vanessa gave birth. It's a girl. Melissa calmly replied, Sorry, Dad, an urgent work matter. I won't be able to come. At such an important moment? Work is more important than family? She smiled. Sometimes. Especially when family is not family. What are you talking about? But Melissa had already hung up. She started the car and looked in the rearview mirror. The reflection stared back at her, decisive. For the first time in a long time, she felt strong. Later, in her apartment, she sat at the table. Outside the window, the Chicago sunset poured in. In her hands, a cup of coffee. In front of her, documents, and a future that now belonged only to her. On the table were bank statements, credit card receipts, and checks from the fertility clinic. Pieces of her life. Now, they had become evidence of betrayal. Returning from the hospital, Melissa began collecting all the important documents in the house. She acted calmly and clearly, as if she were leading a big project in the fashion industry. Just facts. No emotions, she told herself. She turned on the recording of the conversation and started taking notes. Roman, Brian, Ivan, Vanessa's mother's plot to steal money from their account. The money for her treatment was spent on her sister's pregnancy. At that moment, the phone rang. Brian is working late. Probably won't be back today. Love you. Melissa coldly grinned. Taking care of my wife and child in the hospital. Yes, she muttered. She answered briefly. Understood. Then, she opened her contacts and settled on a name, Laura Carter. Laura, her friend, now a family lawyer. Laura, it's Melissa. I urgently need your help. Can we meet? An hour later, Laura was in her apartment. She listened to the recording, looked at the bank statements, and frowned. This is terrible. From a legal point of view, you are in a very strong position. There is betrayal and fraud. What should I do? Melissa asked calmly. Gather everything. Open a separate account. The main thing is not to give yourself away. How long will it take? A month or two. During this time, behave as usual. A fire sparkled in Melissa's eyes, determination. I can handle it. I'll just play the role. The next morning, she woke up at the usual time. Brian was still not there. She got ready, went to the bank, and opened her personal account. At work, she was efficient and concentrated. No one suspected that rage was boiling inside her. In the evening, Brian called. I'll come today. We need to talk. She pretended to be calm. Oh, Vanessa gave birth to a baby girl. Yes, I know. Dad said. Congratulations. There was silence. That's all you have to say? To Vanessa? I have no words. You can cook dinner. Like a celebration. Of course, Melissa answered with a smile. I'm looking forward to it. When she hung up the phone, she took a deep breath. It was beginning. That evening, she cooked his favorite dish, lit the candles, and opened wine. When Brian came in, she greeted him with a smile. Welcome home. Congratulations. You have become an uncle. He looked relieved. Yes, thank you. The child is cute. Vanessa named her Elaine. How touching, she continued to smile. Melissa, let's have dinner. At the table, she asked about his work, his big deals, his plans. He answered, sometimes hesitating, but her warm tone calmed him. And then, she hit where it hurt. I was thinking, maybe I should try the treatment again. Brian froze. You, seriously? Yes. Don't you want a child? Well, it's just expensive. You're worried about the money? She asked quietly. No, I'm just worried about you, he muttered. Hormone injections. No worries. I'm strong. She put her hand on his. Her fingers were cold, but he didn't notice. The next week, she started investigating. During lunch breaks, she went to the bank and requested statements for the last 3 years. At night, she searched his computer. She looked for hidden accounts. She tracked all money transfers. She was patient. She was methodical. And soon, she found what she was looking for. It's even worse than I thought, Melissa told Laura. For the last year and a half, Brian withdrew thousands of dollars every month from our joint account. The money was transferred to another account, used for Vanessa's apartment, her purchases, and her expensive delivery. I have evidence. Melissa showed the files, bank statements, photos, recorded conversations. And Mom took part in this, she added. She secretly gave money to Vanessa and Brian from their savings, hiding it from Dad. Laura nodded. You've done well. Few clients collect evidence this carefully. They ruined my life, Melissa answered calmly. Laura put a hand on her shoulder. Almost everything is ready. All that remains is to find a new place to live and file for divorce. Melissa had already found an apartment. All that remained was signing the contract. Over the weekend, Brian went on a business trip. Melissa wasted no time. She moved her documents, personal belongings, and sentimental gifts to her new apartment. She withdrew her share from their joint account and, with Laura, prepared the divorce papers. But in her heart, one question tormented her. Should I talk to Dad? Her father, Walter, was strict but fair. Did he know about the betrayal? Melissa dialed his number. Dad, I need to talk. This is important. It concerns Mom. Please, let's meet. Tomorrow morning, while she's in church. The next day, at the cafe, her father was already waiting. Melissa brought all the evidence. Calmly, but firmly, she told the truth: Brian and Vanessa's affair, her mother's involvement, how their money was stolen. Walter turned pale. His hands trembled. Anger flared in his eyes. This can't be, he exhaled. You didn't know anything? Of course not. His voice rose. I thought I was giving Vanessa money to help her become independent. When I asked who the father was, she only said it was complicated. I never imagined. Melissa turned on the recording. When it ended, I covered my face with my hands. Forgive me, Melissa. I should have noticed. She took it. He took him by the hand. You're not to blame for anything, Dad. We were deceived. What will you do? I'm filing for divorce. I will seek compensation for everything they took from me. After a minute of silence, Walter nodded. I'm on your side. If you need anything, tell me. Melissa smiled. Thank you, Dad. What should I do with Mom? Nothing yet. Let them think that I don't know anything. Walter agreed. They said goodbye. Melissa was returning home with an easy step. Soon, everything would change. She didn't fully realize it yet, how much this day would change their family. But in her heart, what was once lost long ago appeared again: confidence. I'm home. Brian's voice spread throughout the apartment. He returned from a business trip and took his bag into the hallway. Melissa looked around. There was no answer. A brown envelope lay on the table. His name was written in her elegant handwriting. Brian frowned, took the envelope, and opened it. Inside, there were official documents and a letter. What is this? At that moment, the door opened. Melissa came in. She was in an elegant suit. Her hair was neatly styled, her facial expression cold. Brian had never seen her like this. It was good to go, she asked quietly. What are you talking about? Did you enjoy spending time with Vanessa and the baby? Brian's face turned pale. What are you saying? Stop lying. Melissa raised her hand. Brian froze. I know everything, she said firmly. About you, Ivana, Vanessa. About her mother's conspiracy. About the fact that the money I saved for treatment, you spent on Vanessa and her luxurious life. Brian turned pale. He looked at the envelope. This is some kind of misunderstanding, yes? Melissa silently took out her phone and turned on the recording. Familiar voices filled the room: Brian's voice, Vanessa's voice, her mother's voice. Brian sank heavily onto the chair. Melissa, let me explain. Explain? Her voice was cold. How you betrayed me. How you spent my money. How you slept with my sister and had a child with her. What could the explanation be? Brian was at a loss for words. In the beginning, I really loved you, he stammered, but you blamed me for not being able to have children. Melissa's voice trembled. Infertility was not my choice. You promised me in sickness and in health. I know. Brian covered his face with his hands. But Vanessa, she's not like you. Yes, she's not like me, Melissa answered coldly. She is the one who sleeps with her sister's husband. The one who gives birth to his child. The one who destroys a family and does not feel a drop of guilt for it. Forgive me, Brian suddenly cried. Let's start over. We can still. It's too late. Melissa handed him the documents. The divorce is already being finalized. Everything is documented: stealing money, hidden accounts, cheating. Brian looked at the papers. You collected all this? Yes. While you were working, I checked the statements and sorted out your schemes. One by one, I revealed all your snakes. Brian clenched his fists. Why? Why didn't you just leave in silence? Melissa's eyes flashed with anger. You wanted me to just leave after you took everything from me? My husband, my family, my future, even my money? Did you really think I would just disappear? Brian remained silent. Animal, Melissa spat. Court starts next week. My father will be a witness. Brian winced. Walter, he knows? Yes. He was also your victim. Suddenly, the phone rang. The screen showed Vanessa's name. Melissa grinned. Well, why don't you answer? Brian ignored the call. How can I? And you can't do anything anymore, Melissa shrugged. I packed your things. Leave today. But where should I go? Well, I don't know. Maybe to Vanessa. Your family, right? A week later, the trial began. Lawyer Laura provided evidence: call recordings, bank statements, photos. The judge frowned. This is a serious accusation. The investigation showed that Helen helped hide assets. She ended up on the witness stand, pale. Why did you do it? Asked the judge. Elaine hesitated. Melissa always thought only about work. I didn't want her to have children. A whisper spread through the hall. The judge frowned. Do you really think that justifies cheating? That justifies the destruction of a family? Elaine couldn't answer. Vanessa was sitting next to her, holding the baby. Fear was on her face. Walter stood next to Melissa. You did great, he said quietly. It hurts to see the truth come out, but it was necessary. Thank you, Dad, Melissa replied. The court found her right and ruled in her favor. She received compensation, as well as part of the property Brian and her mother had tried to hide. On the day of the verdict, Melissa walked out of the courthouse with Laura. It was raining, but in her heart, it was light. It's over, she said. No, Laura smiled. This is just the beginning. A year had passed. Autumn covered Chicago in gold. Melissa looked out the window of her new office. Leaves fluttered outside. A sign hung on the door: Lisa Johnson Style Consulting. We got a new client, her assistant, Jessica, reported. They signed the contract. Melissa smiled. Her dream had come true. After the divorce and compensation, she founded her company. Her experience in fashion and sense of style worked wonders. Clients reached out, business grew. Suddenly, the phone rang. Walter's name lit up the screen. Dad, how are you? Dinner is still on, right? Of course. 7 o'clock. Don't be late, he answered cheerfully. Melissa smiled. She remembered last year. As expected, Brian and Vanessa didn't last long. After the trial, Brian lost his job. He had to take a low-paid position. His reputation was ruined. Quarrels began with Vanessa. They argued over money, the child, everything. One day, Melissa saw Vanessa in a cafe. Once confident and proud, she now looked tired and exhausted, struggling to calm the child. Melissa moved to another table so as not to be noticed. But instead of a feeling of victory, an emptiness suddenly appeared inside her. She never reconciled with her mother. Elaine tried several times to mend their relationship, but Melissa never answered. After the scandal, her parents lost friends. Elaine complained she was no longer invited to social events. Melissa didn't care. Although, deep down, she felt lonely. Walter was different. He divorced Elaine and moved into a small apartment. But his relationship with Melissa only became stronger. Now, they had dinner together once a week. In the office, Melissa's gaze fell on a photograph of her and David Clark, her new partner. They met during the divorce. David helped her with her business. He understood her past and didn't rush the relationship. Melissa recently decided to adopt a child. She no longer wanted to undergo treatment for infertility. This was her new path. David supported her decision. And Brian? He fled the state, unable to pay child support. Vanessa returned to her parents. But their former luxurious life never returned. In the evening, Melissa left the office. Autumn wind gently touched her face. She took a deep breath. The pain of the past didn't disappear completely, but she became stronger. Yes, she lost a lot. But she found herself. She was no longer someone's shadow. Now, she was shining herself. She raised her head to the sky. Sunset rays broke through the clouds. They promised a new tomorrow.